Welcome, Legacy Warriors, to episode 10 of the Legacy Warrior podcast, where we help you get in life's arena, become the best version of yourself, and elevate your legacy. I'm here with my beautiful wife and my partner in crime, Stephanie McKinley.
Hey, everybody.
Man, do we have a treat for you guys today? We are so pumped to have my brother from another mother, Jock Brocas, on the podcast today.
Yeah, you guys are going to love his accent.
Man, he's my Scottish brother. And, you know, I did that 43andMe or whatever the thing is where you get, I thought I was all this Irish with the last name McKinley, and I have a lot of Irish in me, but I didn't realize I had 44% Scottish, which was a surprise. So maybe that's why Jock and I connect so well. And look, guys, this man is a warrior. This man has a story that is the epitome of triumph. And like everybody that we bring on here, he has turned his pain into purpose. And he
has had like 20 lives. No joke. Mm-hmm. Every time I talk to him, I learn something new about him.
And so we're going to do his bio in a second, but I can't wait to share his story and his, have him share his wisdom with you. But Jock, what's going on, brother? How you doing today?
I'm so glad to be here. I'm so glad that everything seems great. You know, the weather seems great. We haven't blown up anything electronically. So, you know, let's touch wood that it all goes well. And 44% Scottish, yeah, that's definitely a connection there. Next time we meet, you got to be in a kilt, dude. You know what I mean? You got to ask Stephanie. Has he got the knees? Has he got the knees for a kilt? You know?
Are you supposed to wear anything underneath the kilt? Like, what's the real rule?
Absolutely no, raw and unscripted.
We just better hope it's not a windy day. I'm gonna do a Marilyn Monroe. Y'all keep playing with me with that kilt. Just go stand underneath the vent.
That's how you can tell. That's how you can tell a true Scotsman. There's nothing underneath his kilt.
Well, now I know the official rules, Steph. Look out. All right. So look,
all you Outlander fans, if you're like me, you see Sam Heughan in his kilt, and now you know.
Oh, look. You know what? Hold on. Let me mute Stephanie's mic real quick. Hold on just a second.
I told you before we started this was going to go downhill very fast.
Well, I already knew because we had an Army guy on here, it was going to go downhill either way. You know what I'm saying? Us Navy people keep it pinkies out. Hi, Sadiddy. All right. Let me read Jock's bio for you guys so you guys can understand this man, this warrior that we have on here today. And then we're going to go ahead and get this started. So you can tell already there's going to be a lot of fun here today. There's going to be some real wisdom shared. And, one of the things I love the most about Jock is he comes at things from a totally different perspective, especially when it comes to spirituality. And the way he thinks and articulates things is different than Stephanie and I. And it really makes you think. I mean, there's been times Jock and I have known each other for a year and a half, probably going on 2 years now. And there's been times I've had to sit, even though he's an Army guy, I've had to really sit and think about what he just said. He'll say something. I'll say, damn, like, hold on. Did I understand what you just said? Ooh, that was really good. So I can't wait for him to share some of that. So look, Jock is a veteran. He's a spiritual teacher for over the last 2 decades. He's overcome traumas, trials, adversity in his life, and he uses the power of spiritual warriorship to mentor others. Jock considers himself a guide, a gardener who sowed seeds in people's hearts to ignite the divine warrior spirit within and to unlock their greatness and potential so that they can serve with love and no condition. He's also a multiple-time best-selling author on spirituality and parapsychology, with books written in multiple languages around the world. This man, sometimes I'm like, bro, he'd tell me another story about somebody. I'm like, you're the most interesting man in the world. Man, you have done so much cool stuff, including being security for the Queen Mother back in the day. And so
he even has a picture. We saw it.
So look, Jock, I want you to talk to the audience a little bit and talk to them about just this life journey. You know, some of the pain you went through. How did you really become triumphant? We'll get into some of the cool stuff. And by the way, I give Jock a hard time for being in the Army. If you're in the Army, I love you too. It's okay. If you have a family member in the Army,
ladies and gentlemen,
you too.
he's only getting back to me because I rib him about being in the Navy all the time. You know, where we were out with big guns, he was more sitting on a seat shining his bum.
That's right. That's right. Right in the intelligence center.
Right in the reports, while we were out in the pissing rain and God knows anything else. No, but we
Hey, don't forget, I was in the air conditioning on the ship too. That was pretty nice.
That's right. Yeah. We had mess tins for food, and he had like a big buffet. That's the difference.
Yes, that is fact. Especially when I became an officer. So it changed from Melissa to officer too, which was pretty amazing. So Jock, give the audience a rundown of this just incredible story you have. And I know you're going to downplay the beautifulness of this life and how you are as a man of service now. But I want people to really get a glimpse into where you started to how you got to where you're at today.
Right. I will give you the 30-second version. Okay, so
you can't do 30 seconds. What are you trying to get?
Not with 20 lives. All right, so I've always been a spiritually oriented person. I was brought up a Roman Catholic. My uncle was a monk in a monastery, and I was drawn into that life right from the minute I could open my eyes. And yesterday we tried recording, but weird shit happened. So, I'll run over the story that I gave yesterday. We were, my first memory and even the first thing that my family told me when I was young, that we would be in a Scottish pub, and, my father and all the relations would be there. And of course I'd get up on the bar, 3-year-old, they'd put me on this bar. And I'd start saying my prayers, and everybody thought it was brilliant, So from a very,
I know
very
Jock
young
has an
age,
accent. You heard him at 3 years old, because in Scotland, Ireland, those places, kids can go into bar. Literally stood him on the bar so he could preach.
And I never started drinking till I was like 7.
Are you sure?
Right, to be sure.
I bet they were putting whiskey in that bottle.
Well, funny enough, actually, that's what they used in Scotland. That's what they used to do when you were teething. They would get the dummy tit and stick it in the old, whiskey and soak it. Maybe that's why I like whiskey. I don't know. I'm sure. But no, in all seriousness, I had a very deep spiritual upbringing, but I was never really drawn into dogma. Even though I was brought up as a Roman Catholic, I was always interested in every other religion or every other spiritual understanding. And so, when kids were out playing football and stuff like that, I was very studious, and I'd be my first book, instead of my first book most people was a comic and books like that and Superman comics. My first book was A Vocation to the Priesthood. So even as a young kid, I remember my mother going, what the heck? We give him pocket money and he goes and buys a book on the Vocation to the Priesthood. But that's where I wanted to be. That's where I felt at home. And kind of fast forward, I had that life. I spent a lot of time, every holiday that I could, I wanted to go to the monastery. Then I wanted to be a priest. I joined the junior seminary and was going in to take orders, and eventually, they asked me to leave because they didn't think I was psychologically ready for it, because my uncle had passed and his death, hit me quite hard. And then I did what every other good person coming out of a junior seminary wants to do, or anybody who's aspiring to be a priest. I joined the freaking military and I became a soldier. But my spirituality never left me. It was always deeply entrenched in me. And even through my military career. And I suffered, I suffered abuse as a young kid, not from my direct family, but from other members. I had been abused, and I had also, which is not known, and I had abuse in the army as well. I was at one point being the only Scotch guy in that regiment at the time, or where I was, 3 o'clock in the morning, a whole load of guys, burst into my billet and beat me to within an inch of my life. And that caused me to reconsider life and reconsider myself in the military. And I went AWOL and tried to commit sideways or commit suicide, because I didn't think there was anything else to live for. And found myself at the edge of a pier, ready to throw myself in. And I did. I actually did jump in. I threw myself in. And my car was, I left my car abandoned on the road. But I had like an awakening experience, kind of brought me back to reality. One, because the water was absolutely freaking freezing, and I never even contemplated that. So, thank the Lord it was actually really cold that day. And I swam back, and I think that was a bit of an awakening for me. And then obviously, I had a great mother and father. I didn't go on to my father. My father passed when he was young, and we never had good words when he passed. And he died literally afterwards. I was a bouncer on a nightclub. I used to run a nightclub in north of Scotland, and I never had a great relationship with Dad. But of course, I had a lot of other experiences where I'd done undercover work in the past, and I had different experiences with my intuition where it had saved my life. I wrote about that in The Powers of the Sixth Sense. And so I've had kind of dramatic changes in my life from going, from one element to another, a whole 180 and 360. But never did my spiritual thirst leave me. It probably got worse. And I kept on searching and searching and searching. And I never found it in religion. I never found it in dogma. I found it in a self-directed path, really. And that's kind of where I am.
So wow. That's quite a story. I'm a little in shock. See, I just learned something new again, because I know you talked about taking your own life, but I didn't know you went that far. I didn't know you actually jumped.
Yeah, twice. Twice I tried to do that, Stephanie. One other time which now I work with a lot of people in grief, as you know. I couldn't grieve for my father because I never even shed a tear when he passed. But 6 months later, I found myself basically drunk on a beachfront, on a stone beach. Not a beautiful beach, because you don't have them in Scotland, but in a really cold beach, and then gone back. And the second time I got that low, I was in the dark night of the soul, and I took a Japanese tanto out and was just about to pile it into my stomach when I was going to commit seppuku, because I felt ashamed. I felt guilty, and it was horrible. And a friend that I work with burst in through that door and stopped me.
Wow.
And knocked the living shit out of me, actually, and took away my knives and my other stuff, and my bottle of vodka that was hidden on the side. So
That's
a good friend, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Now, this just made me realize, because I know now you do grief counseling, and as now I see there was a lot of loss in your life too.
So from military losses, from family, people that close to me, people have died in my arms.
Yeah. And something struck me when you said you didn't cry a tear for your dad.
No.
Can you tell us why that was?
My dad was a wee bit of a gangster, right? My dad was one of them boys in Scotland. He did things that were really up against the law. And I worked on the side of the law. And so we had no respect and trust. And it got really bad at one point when if I came into the room, my father was on a phone, it would stop. And I knew that he was doing stuff that was fairly dodgy. My dad, I would equate, now don't get me wrong, now I have a great relationship with my dad, and that's another story, but, and he has passed, so read between the lines, guys. My father, there was no trust, and we didn't we had just, it was just awkward. And my dad also had he never ever abused me, but my dad was a heavy drinker. And we had, problems in our family when, I was looking after my brother when I was a really young boy, and my mother would go to work night shift as a nurse, and my dad would literally go to the pub and leave me looking after my brother, and I had to grow up really quickly. And there's many, many, many other examples of things like that. So there was distance between me and my father. And then, of course, when I went in the military and came out of the military and then did the other work that I did as well, and never the twain shall meet. He was on one side and I was on the other, and so there was no trust there. So I found it, you know, pardon my French, right? I'm going to cuss a little bit here, ladies and gentlemen, but the last words I said to my father was basically, I hope you fucking die. You've got 9 lives and you wouldn't be that lucky. He died within hours.
And that's tough, right? That's where some of that crying when you're drunk and, you know, you're just kind of living in a little bit.
You know why I was sitting there and ready to do that, because I felt deep shame.
You know, you talked a lot about just, you know, which I think is hilarious, but amazing at the same time, being 3 years old and standing on the bar.
Yeah.
And then wanting to go into the monastery, buying spiritual books when everybody else is buying comic books. But you were experiencing a lot of trauma in this time, an alcoholic father, right? There's yelling, even if there's not physical domestic violence, there's still there's still emotional trauma. There's some mental trauma.
Hope to God my mother doesn't listen to this. She probably won't. But no, there was a lot of, I mean, I remember back in the days where my mother would try and take a knife to my father, and my family would. My brother doesn't remember any of this, but I remember a lot of that.
Yeah,
because I was right in the middle of it. I remember crying. I mean, I went. So here's a skinny, guys. I went on a religious retreat. I went on a retreat, and I came back, and my mother had moved house, and I didn't know. She'd gone and up. She'd split from my father, and they had moved. And I came back. I got off the bus as a young kid from this spiritual retreat I was on, and I had no way of getting into the house. There was my dad again was in the pub and everything else, and I had to basically take my pack and walk for miles to go and find where my mother was. Luckily, my uncle, who I was really close to, had a shop at the time, and I could go to the shop, and he was like a second father to me. Now, don't get me wrong. I didn't hate my dad. I love my dad.
Yeah.
And that love connection was still there, but there was, in the material sense, in the material world, there was great distance. But, you know, many times I would go and retreat and come back, and I had nowhere to go.
Well, you know, I think a lot of times for me too, kids don't ever stop, you know, loving their parents. They stop loving themselves through the trauma. And that's why we have to do the healing work. Yeah. So you experienced childhood trauma, then you had trauma in the military, and all the while to where you almost took your life twice. Because I know in those moments, because I've almost taken my own before, you really feel like life is happening to you versus for you when you're down in that tornado of emotion. But the spirituality aspect, I think, is hugely important. You know, at 19 years old, I had, like, you know, we talked about spiritual awakening. I had a spiritual awakening. Didn't mean I healed. It didn't mean that I felt amazing when I left the church that day. I just unloaded a lot of the stuff I was carrying around and laid it for me at the feet of Jesus. So what for you was that moment, or was there a pinnacle, like, bam, this moment where you can reflect now and say, man, this spiritual journey that I'm on, I went from being life happening to me to life happening for me, trusting and surrendering that I am going to be powerful because of my experiences versus those experiences just drowning you every single day in those emotions you felt.
Well, you know what, guys, you know, if I hadn't experienced what I experienced then, I wouldn't be the person that I am now. Right. I wouldn't have the empathy that I have now. And I wouldn't have the deep understanding and be able to really feel someone. And, you know, when I help someone through grieving, or I help someone who's lost, who's under spiritual crisis, then I'm not coming from a place of theory. Anybody can read books and be a theory hog. They can be experts in theory, but if they don't have any deep spiritual practice, there's no way that they can equate that to somebody else's pain and actually help them through it. So for me, I now realize everything I went through was happening, like you said, was happening for me. Because how could I touch other people's hearts? How could I help them see? How could I sow seeds in their heart to make them more aware of the power of the divine that they have within them, and how they can transform themselves from trauma to triumph, transform their lives from mediocrity to abundance, to transform their spiritual self to being a light in the world and shining it where the darkness resides. I would never be able to do that if I hadn't gone through all that stuff that I'd gone through. So for me, it's a freaking blessing. And I praise God that I got the chance to go through it and learn.
Well, I think, and Steph's going to jump in too here, but I want to just edify something that you just said, because I absolutely feel the same way. And for those of you guys listening, like Jock's going through a PhD course on grief and being able to counsel people through grief because of his experience.
It's now that's actually what my dissertation is going to be on, but I'm on a PhD track because I got onto one because I didn't have a degree in psychology. I'm actually doing spiritual psychology for the next 4 or 5 years, which is leading to my PhD in 4 years, which I'll do my dissertation on my work, because I've been a researcher in grief for many, many years.
I love it. So I want people to know we didn't go to school for counseling necessarily. Jock's doing his thing now. We're not therapists. What we are is people who've used our life experiences to build a connection with somebody else in a non-prescriptive way. Now there's all that stuff is great, counseling and therapy and everything else.
Yeah.
The reason we talk about real people, real stories, real triumph on this podcast specifically is because there's nothing that builds belief more than knowing you're not alone and somebody else has made it through the emotions and the pit of despair and the things that you're feeling today. So if you're out there listening to this and you're really like, man, Jock's speaking to my soul today, really, we're going to go through some tips and 4 keys later. Take out a notebook, sit down and really listen without distractions what we're talking about, because these things changed his life and they will change yours. Jock and I share a lot of similarities because I had these experiences. So we talk about things the same because it's real. This is how you heal. So go ahead.
Well, something that's standing out to me is, you mentioned trying to take your life 2 different times.
Yeah.
And I know Walt has been in that place too. And a previous guest of ours has also. And now I'm just curious because I've never been to that. I always call it a come to Jesus moment. That's what I say is like your rock bottom, that point where you just, everything changes for you.
Yeah.
I have had that kind of moment, but not in the same way, not to where I was going to take my own life.
Yeah.
I have experienced depression, and I know what depression feels like.
Yeah.
So I know it can be easy to get to that place. So I'm just curious to know, what would you tell people that maybe they're in that place, maybe they're depressed, and maybe they're feeling like, why does my life even matter? Why am I even here? Does anyone even care about me? What would you tell that person that's in that place that they might be considering taking their life?
1, there's no such thing as death. 2, you don't escape the problems that you've created in your life or the problems that you're experiencing in your life by taking that easy way out, because on the other side, you still have to atone, you'll still have to go through, you'll still have to face that pain and suffering and work through it. So best work through it here. But the other thing I can say to them is that we've been in that battle, we've been in that war zone, but here's the thing, all things are temporary in this life. This life that we are on, even all suffering is temporary. When you cross over to the other side, that suffering stops. But you can win through the battle that you're going through now, and all it takes is awareness and your mind, becoming more aware. And actually, I don't like to use the word spiritual awakening because I'm more drawn to the word realization, because when you talk about spiritual awakening, it suggests that you're asleep. Our souls are never asleep. Our souls are always awake. Our souls are always connected to us and feeding us and trying to guide us to the best possible solution. So I don't believe in spiritual awakening. I believe in spiritual realization. I kind of spirit realization. So I want to get people to the point where they can realize who they are. They can realize the miracle in life. You can sit, like I said, you can sit with a beautiful rose and you hold that rose in your hand. And what's the thing that you notice about it? How beautiful and perfect it is. How the petals look in perfect harmony with each other. How the shape, how the geometry of it. There's a divine design in that. And remember, yesterday when we were speaking, Steph, you talked about there's a thorn. And we see the thorns in the plants and the rose as something negative that can cause us pain. But remember that in every darkness, there's a light. There's every darkness, there's a blessing if you can only see it. And that thorn is a blessing to the rose because it protects the rose.
Yes, and you can't recognize the beauty without the pain.
Exactly. We need to become more aware of it. So in our pain, there's a great blessing to be had. Now, not at the time when we're going through it, we don't see that.
Right.
Right.
But all things are temporary. I remember our Grand Master used to say, all things are temporary.
And that leads me to asking you, so what was it in your pain that led you to your purpose now?
I've always had the desire, Steph, to serve people with a divinity in mind. I see no one as separate from me. I see nothing as separate to me. I see no difference in creed nor color, because all blood runs red. I see that when I look at a tree, that I'm the tree. When I look at the child, I'm the child. And if I realize that I'm bigger than what I perceive I am, then I don't want to see anyone suffering. And I'll do anything to stop people suffering. And if that means that I give them the tools through my experiences, then I want to teach them how to use those tools. Because a tool is only worth something when you use it. If it sits in your tool bag, it's just a shiny tool that does nothing. And so I want to teach people to really understand that there is a spiritual solution to everything in life, and that a spiritual, no one, whether you are a skeptic, whether you don't believe in God, you don't believe in Jesus, you don't believe Muhammad, you cannot go through this life without a spiritual foundation. Even in business, Dale Carnegie, Henry Ford, every one of these people had a spiritual foundation. And it doesn't require your belief for its existence. But when you embrace it, God, man, how things can change. How things can transform.
I love you say spirituality specifically.
Yeah.
Because I think people just always equate the spirituality to religion.
Yeah.
And it's not having religion.
No.
It's having spirituality in your life where there's something bigger than what you are. There's something that you can go lay your feet at the pain, or your pain at the feet of. And I think one of the most, you talked about tools, so my mind's just running, right? Because I always use the toolbox analogy. And there's so many different ways to move through your life. You'll hear commonalities, but the more tools you can put in your toolbox that you can leverage, the more successful you're going to be, the more happy you're going to be. Which we need to equate success to happiness and not monetary and things. And one of the biggest tools in somebody's toolbox is forgiveness. This is huge. And I think about, because we have veterans that listen to this podcast too. I think about your experience as a veteran. So you're a Scottish guy in the British military, right? You end up getting beat to an inch of your life. I mean, that's the stuff that we see on movies. But you still, like, you're still in the military at that point. So how do you rectify either pain from your childhood or pain from that moment, forgive, where you don't live in quiet misery and you don't continue to go back to comfortable pain and continue to go jump off the bridge, really be able to forgive, lay your pain at the feet of your spirituality, and then move forward in life with such a servant's heart and a servant's attitude?
I think what we've got to understand is most people equate, as you said, the forgiveness is a tool. That's what they say, right? Or they say that forgiveness is a skill. That's a skill that you develop. Right? And here's my thing where I go against the whole grain of what everybody
I already
thinks.
told y'all Jock was going to come with some different stuff, which is so good, right?
So here's, as I've gone through and I'm still spiritually developing. I always will be, even when I cross over to the other side and I meet Jesus, and I'll still be looking for more answers. But one of the things that I've really I have worked with forgiveness over the years, especially in grief. And what I've learned is that forgiveness is not a tool. It's not a skill. Because if it's a tool, it's something that we get to use temporarily. And if it's a skill, it's only temporary. And we train in a skill to get better at that skill. And then when we don't need that, we get rid of it. Forgiveness, ladies and gentlemen, is a divine power. Forgiveness is a power that is within you. And you don't have to forgive anyone. And you don't have to seek forgiveness from anyone. And you don't actually need to forgive yourself. Because what creates the prison of the mind is the judgment that you hold upon the act, or the judgment that you hold upon yourself, whether you judge someone that's hurt you, or you're judging the hurt that you have given yourself, or you're judging your mental anguish. It's all down to judgment. In order to forgive, you need to be non-judgmental. You need to basically use that divine power to let the judgment go. Because when the judgment goes, the rest will flow. Because that person you're seeking forgiveness from, they don't have to forgive you. And let me ask you this, ladies and gentlemen, and you can email in to Walt and Steph. There's been many times where you've been seeking forgiveness from someone and they forgive you, or you forgive someone, but you do not feel forgiven. You feel worse. It hasn't taken away the pain. Why? Because you're still living in painful judgment. Let the judgment go. That's how you forgive.
You know what's wild about that is, like, it still comes back to what I've always said. Forgiveness is for you.
Yeah,
if you really want to be happy
power.
And you really want to maximize your power in life and your potential in life,
yeah,
it's always for you. And I see so many people looking, especially that have been through trauma, they're looking to get an I'm sorry from the person that hurt them.
It won't take it away.
It's never going to be enough.
No, never will be.
Right? They think it will be, but it's just not.
No.
That's the reality of it. And so I love just how you take forgiveness and you just turn it on its head just a little bit there, because it's such a unique perspective, but it still always revolves around forgiveness being for you in order to be happy in life and maximize your potential.
And remember, it's all connected, guys. Forgiveness is connected to kindness. Forgiveness is connected to compassion. Forgiveness is connected to responsibility. Just because it's forgiveness doesn't mean that you're going to escape every other tool.
I find this interesting because I just had a conversation with Walt the other day about forgiveness, about how I had to learn to forgive.
Oh, probably what
and
I did.
Said,
we are married.
Well, I said to him, I said, you know what? I'm having this realization that for me personally, the only way I was able to forgive is I gave it to God.
Yeah.
I laid it at his feet and I gave it to him. And that's how I let it go. Like you're saying, you had to let it go.
You had to let it go.
That's how I let it go, was I gave it to God. That's the only way I could figure out how to let it go. And this keeps coming to my mind is something I heard in church, but and I'm really big on, like, you don't have to go to church to have a relationship with God. All you have to do is talk to God. He's always there. He's waiting for you.
Yeah.
It doesn't require going to church or religion. It's just having a relationship with him. Yeah. And this phrase keeps coming to my mind about Jesus, because Jesus died for us. And it's him saying, Jesus said, I am the way, the truth, and the life. So the only way, the only path to true freedom is through him. Whether we want to recognize it or not, there's a lot of people out there who don't believe in God, and they, I told Walt, I'm going to be one of those people that's going to be like, F political correctness. I don't care, because he is the only way. So until
let me
you
be
figure
devil's
that out,
advocate.
and that's why I call it a come to Jesus moment.
Yeah.
Because you will at some point be on your knees.
Yeah.
And that is the point that you get the closest to him. That is why we have pain and struggle. It's to bring us to him.
So let me be devil's advocate, because I hear what you're saying, and I agree with it to a point. Because if we then say that Jesus is the only way, it means that the Buddhists then have got to come to Jesus, and then so does everybody else. This is where people tend to, or even religions tend to get it mixed up, where they say this deity is the only way that you can go through.
That's why I don't believe in religion.
So the reality is it's not Jesus, right? It's not when he says, I am the way, the truth, and the life. The I am is really the interconnectedness of everything that is. He's not placing a label or an expectation on anything. And he's not saying, I am me and you only come through me. He's talking about divine power. He's talking about the divinity, the divine authority. I am the authority as you are the authority. Well, that same authority exists in Buddha, in Muhammad, in the Hindus, in Native Americans. This is where a lot of times religion hurts people because they tend to think, yeah, we have this, you can only go through Jesus. That's not true. You go through the same power. Remember that the same power that animated Jesus, the same power that animated Buddha, the same power that animates the rose, the other flower, the tree, is the same animating force that gives us life. That same animating force that flowed through Jesus flows through me. That same animating force that flows through you, flows through Walt, flows through me. It is not different. There is no vibrational change in it.
Right. I think like, I don't know. I'm going to get kind of deep here for a second. I look at that.
Steph's feeling
the
it.
thing. I look at all these religions and I'm like, well, we all believe in a higher power. We call it something different. We all believe in a higher power, but yeah. So why do we have 100 different religions? So nobody's really right in their religion. It's not religion. It's like you said, there's a divine power that's higher than us.
Yeah.
We all believe in this divine power. And that's the way that was the creator, and that's who we go back to, and that's the only person that's going to give us true freedom.
Well,
and here's the thing, religion is man-made. God, in his infinite wisdom, or whoever you believe in spirit, didn't say, I'm going to create Jews, I'm going to create Muslims, I'm going to create Hindus, right? He created a power. That power flowed from that animating force, that divinity.
We're really
and
all
so
one.
man creates the labels, man creates the detachment, the attachment, man creates the distortion and the distance. Man does it. Because when you go over to the other side, you ain't going to have no religion.
Exactly.
You're going to be the same. And it's
you're going to stand
force.
before your creator. That's why you and I are on the same page as far as like, that's what this life is about. We're here to serve other people.
Yeah.
We're supposed to learn through our pain and struggle. We're supposed to learn through all the bad stuff so we can turn around and serve someone else and help them through the same thing. That's what we're here for.
That's it.
And that's what our creator is looking at. Are we doing those things? And we're going to stay here until we fulfill that purpose.
If you do that to the least of my brothers, you do it to me.
So I got a question that probably people are going to be thinking about at this point in the conversation. So, Jock, if you think about, because I love it, it's like spirituality, like you have to be beholden to something bigger than yourself, I feel like. Whatever you want to call it's what you want to call it. We just happen to follow Christianity. So for you, regardless of what you look for your spirituality, how do you really move into surrender? Because that is one of the biggest things, like really having faith and surrendering to what's next for you or where you're going or why the pain is going to serve as purpose or whatever that moment of and season of life you're in. How do you surrender to the greater good?
That's a great question. You surrender because if you're trying to surrender something, it means that you're creating distance from it. And it means that you see it as something separate to the self. So the way that I look at surrender is me having the realization that I am a divine child of God, that I have that authority and that divinity. And I do not surrender. What I do is I call upon my divine authority and my divine power to transform that which causes me suffering, or to transform that which causes suffering in another being. And the greatest gift that you can give humanity is the gift of service. So in my toolbox of surrender, again, comes back to spirit realization, of realizing that I am a divine child, that force that animates everything animates me, and that I have that divine power within. And so I want to wield that power, just as Archangel Michael wields the sword of truth. And for me, if I asked any of you, what is spirituality? Well, let me do it. What does spirituality mean to you? Well, And then, Stephanie, you tell me what spirituality means to you. And what I want you to think about is to really think about what it means to you, and then tell me in one sentence.
So to me, spirituality means giving my faith and surrender to a higher purpose, something that I know is greater than me and something that can help guide the light in my life. For me
said
personally,
one sentence.
I mean, I did. I just put ellipses in my sentence. You know what I'm saying? I put ellipses in my sentence to keep it going, semicolons. I never put a period, bro, or an exclamation point.
So I do this to my students all the time, and it can go deep, honestly. So Stephanie, what does spirituality mean to you?
No pressure, one sentence.
No ellipsis, full stops, commas, exclamation marks.
I guess it's I surrender to that higher power.
I like that.
I told Walt, and this is really crazy because it just came out the other day. I can't even remember why. It was like he was kind of drilling down to my why. What's my why in doing this? And why am I getting on this podcast and speaking to everyone?
Yeah.
And he just kept drilling down, and I finally said, because I want to make God proud of me. That's what's driving me. That's my motivator. You know, because he says he had to do this with a lot of people who work for him because, you know, he's always trying to figure out what motivates them because it's not money. Everybody thinks it's money because that's what we need to survive and live. And so a lot of us think it's that, and it's really not that. And, you know, and he's had other people tell him, you know, it's my kids or it's this or that. And I said some of the same type of things. And he just kept saying, no, why? Because he could tell he wasn't getting to my real why.
Well, you can go even deeper.
I don't even know. I didn't realize. I mean, I do live my life this way. I just never had to define it. But
And
really,
all the emotion came out when she did.
Yeah. And then I was in tears because it's that true and deep to me. And that's how he knows that he got to your real why.
So let me challenge you again. So for me, spirituality is clarity and truth. 2 words. That's it. Clarity and truth. So you said to make God proud, right? But what if I said to you that that's only a perception that you hold, and that God in his infinite wisdom was already proud of you and doesn't want you to look to him to want to put the expectation on that you want him to be proud of you? Maybe God just wants you to express divine love in order to serve. Because God, I can tell you right now, does not want you to have an expectation of you needing to be proud, or him needing to be proud of you, whether you equate that as a being or an energy. That's an expectation we put on ourselves by man, by religion, by what we've taught, by the see, people say to me, what do you believe in?
Us.
He already does. He don't need to be proud. You don't need to look for him. You don't need to look for his favor because it's there. Right. What he wants you to do is express the purest essence of divinity through you. We have a saying in some of the other stuff that I do.
Yeah, and
from spirit, through spirit, to spirit. From spirit, through spirit, to spirit. Nothing to do with expectations, attachments, or judgments.
Right now I believe that like we are a vessel for him. Like he works through us. We're his hands and feet.
From spirit.
Look, I told y'all Jock was going to come with some different stuff today. Stephanie's like, dang, Jock, stop challenging me. Look, even an army guy could make this happen right now.
I love talking to someone else who's deeply spiritual because that's how I feel. And I feel like there's not a lot of people who get it.
This is why whenever Jock and I talk on the phone, it's like a damn 2-hour conversation. We just go deep. But I think this is what's so cool.
Yeah, Joe says, you talking to Walt? Shall I make you a coffee?
Yeah, she really does too. Like one day I was talking to Jock and he's sitting in where he's, if you guys are watching the video on YouTube, he's sitting in where he's sitting now. And it started like the sun wasn't in his face. because, you know, you guys wanted the archway blinds. The sun wasn't in his face. And then all of a sudden the sun was in his face. And then it was like down on the floor. You could literally, I think we had a sundial happening right there and didn't even really know it because we were just in this conversation.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, and
Well, you can see why now.
We do get into it.
So, Jock, I think we love doing the 4 keys on this show. And you have so much wisdom that you can share with people. But if you can give somebody today who's listening, like, man, this guy's really speaking to me, the spiritual warriorship, turning pain into purpose, whatever it is. What are 4 keys you can give somebody today that they can start utilizing? They can put in their toolbox and get it dirty right away. They can utilize that can help change their life and help maximize their potential.
No pressure.
How you like that? Pressure.
Awareness, acceptance, choice, and gratitude.
Okay, so talk about each of those. So talk about awareness first.
Awareness. You cannot change anything in your life. You cannot change anything unless you have an awareness of it. If you don't have any awareness of it, there is no change to take place. You need to become aware. Very simply, if I'm aware that I'm sitting in this chair and I'm quietly meditating, I'm aware that I'm in the chair, but because I have that awareness, I can then accept that I'm in the chair. I can then have the choice to do something and move up from the chair. But nothing changes without awareness. If you're aware that you're in pain, that's the first thing that you can celebrate. The problem is that people, they have an awareness of it, but they think it's a negative thing. Oh, I'm aware that I'm struggling. I'm aware that I'm depressed. But man, that's celebration time because you've just become aware. And that means that you can now move forward to accepting it. And then we move forward to the next place. Come to acceptance of something. Talking about grief. I'm aware that I'm on the grief journey and I can accept that grief journey. When I come to a place of acceptance, I'm inviting peace into my heart. Because in the acceptance, I can now look towards transforming the pain, the suffering, into trauma, into triumph, into passion, into purpose. But it doesn't start unless we become aware. And then we have to accept it. Once we accept it, and then we have, that's another deeper aspect of that awareness. And then when we move from the acceptance, because it's bringing a little bit of peace into us, we have the ability to choose. And the choice is the greatest gift that God has given us.
Yes.
We have the choice to pick up our shields and fight for what is right. We have the choice to make the decisions that help us to move us forward from outward, to move us forward through our pain. We have the choice to serve others without condition. We have the choice to be kind. We have the choice to be compassionate. We have the choice to take part in gossip or not. We can have the choice to develop ourselves and to develop our souls for a higher purpose. Man, what a gift that is. That's beyond any material factor in this world.
Yeah.
Choice is the most precious gift that we've been given. And then when we've chosen and we've taken action upon it, then we can give true gratitude and thanks for everything that we've experienced. And gratitude does not mean saying, thank you, God, thank you, Jesus, for this. That's just surface level gratitude. That's gratitude in a New Age book, or a book who tells you to be thankful for what you're thankful each day. You really want to experience gratitude, then you need to go into the story of gratitude and the energy of gratitude and go back to where the seed originated. And utilize everything in your mind, your body, your soul to really go back to that seed. And that's gratitude. And that's my 4 keys.
That's deep.
And I feel like, hold on. We're playing Legacy Warrior music after that. Ooh, let's go. I hope you had your pens out.
Yes. Feel that power. Go out and be that warrior. That's how I feel after that. I just want to say thank you, Jock, so much for being here today. As always, like we truly appreciate your wisdom, and that you always are so gracious with sharing everything you can. I mean, you're the type of person that just would give you the shirt off your back and never think twice. And I just appreciate you.
I'd
Truly.
even give you my pants, but it might not be good when you're standing there without pants on.
I'll bring my own pants, bro. It's okay.
That's not a good vision.
Jock, I also wanted to, before we go,
Yeah.
I also wanted to make sure that we talked about your masterclass that you do on grief. I know that you're doing so much work. Not only have you experienced it and had to find the power in it, you're going and elevating your own education for it. But already you're doing a lot of teaching and helping so many. I know you've helped so many people understand their grief, the different types of grief, and then also be able to move forward from that in a different way where they don't stay stuck in life. So talk a little bit about your masterclass on grief and when the next one is, and then how people can find you so they can go be part of that.
Yeah. So I have, so I actually have a grief community that's called Pillars of Grief, and it's a very private, very secure community. And I've been helping I do this in my own time. I've been helping a lot of widows who've lost their loved ones, lost their husbands through COVID, and other people now are joining that have lost loved ones. I give that my time free, but in that community, I teach regularly. Every month I have a gathering, and I ask, they get to ask questions of me, and I'll give you an example, guys. For those of you that don't know, I've been a professional medium for many years, but this community is not about that. There's people in there that are Christians, there's people in there that are Hindu, there's people in there that are from all walks, and everybody comes together because they're suffering from the same pain, that no matter what you believe in or who you are, whether you're a king, queen, or whether you're a president, prime minister, or a government official, a military person, or a pauper on the street, grief is universal. So don't let it stop you that you might be going to church on a Sunday if you're still, because in a church you might not find the answer to the pain, because a lot of it can come from ego. But I have a community, and I would invite you, if you've lost a loved one recently, and you're suffering, and you want answers, or you just want to be in a community, people that understand your pain and will share, be in that space with you, will get into that dark cavern with you and hold your hand, then that's the place to be. It doesn't cost nothing, it's free. And you'll get my wisdom as much as I can share on regular classes that I teach. And if you go in there now, there's umpteen different classes there that you can go and take. It's all free. And
wait, say that last part again. I want people to really hear that last part. It's all what?
It's all free.
It's all free, y'all. Look, Jock is about serving. He's not about the likes and the clicks and how much money he can make from somebody. He's about serving because that's his life's mission. That's where his heart's at. And I think, Jock, so the Pillars of Grief, is there a landing page for that? Is there, where do people go find it?
Go to my website, jockbrocas.com. And right on the homepage, there's a massive big picture button that just says community. And it's by application, because we have to be very careful who we let in, because there's people suffering. Yep. We don't want people in there touting the services. We don't want mediums in there touting for readings. We don't want people in there trying to convert them into some kind of cult. So, you go through the process, you apply, and you get accepted, and you're in, and you'll meet the most wonderful and loving people who are walking the same path as you. And think of it this way. The community is so strong that when you're walking on the path, or you're walking on a forest path, and you look down and you can only see one set of footprints, it's because everybody else is holding you up when you're in pain.
And I think this is so important, guys. If you're out there and you're feeling alone and you're struggling with grief, or you're struggling with your spirituality, you got to get plugged into communities. More importantly, the right communities too.
Yeah.
But you got to get plugged into communities with other people who feel the way you do. And like Jock just said, who have walked the journey before you to help you walk that same journey just in a faster way. But at the end of the day, you got to make the choice. You have to make the attempt to go out and find the community. You have to have the courage to say, enough is enough. I'm tired of hurting and I'm tired of being sick and tired. And now I'm going to go make the choice to be part of this. And I love, Jock, that you create a safe space for people by vetting. That's so huge. And I don't see a lot of people do that because it's all about the numbers. That you actually do that. So it just, again, it's a testament to your heart. And brother, I just want to thank you so much for coming on the show today. I mean, just as a friend, you've been such a blessing in our life, but I've seen you work through this world in the last 2 years, and I've seen your servant's heart. And you and I got the opportunity to meet last year in person. And that was so awesome. Much fun. And then you just feel that energy from somebody at the same time where you know they are who that they say that they are. And I think there's going to be so many people who are blessed by this show who really listen and have so many different unique perspectives to take away and some real thoughts to take away to help elevate their life and make them the best version of themselves. So thank you so much for coming on the show.
Well, it's my pleasure.
Man. Okay. So look, guys, join us next week on episode 11 as we do a deep dive. And Steph and I recorded this one already yesterday. We do a deep dive in embracing fear and how it really leads to happiness and success in every part of your life. How can you really learn to embrace the fear, do it scared, and really have the success, the peace, and the freedom you're looking for in your life? So if this episode resonated with you, share it or text it out with somebody, y'all.
Yes. And we love feedback.
Yeah.
Constructive feedback.
Look, share it out though. Like send somebody a text of the link. Don't just tell them to go to it because this will change somebody's life. Don't forget to subscribe on the Legacy Warrior podcast page on YouTube, on Instagram at Legacy Warrior podcast, or just go to your preferred platform, Apple, Spotify, whatever you do, and just go. Yeah, there's a lot. And go to Legacy Warrior podcast. Find us. We'd love to hear your feedback. We'd love to hear your thoughts. And it's super cool. We're starting to get people who want us to talk about things on the show. And we've done a couple episodes on that. That just lights our heart on fire because we know we're serving people that are listening in a way that they need. And so continue to give us that feedback. But until the next time, stay in the arena of life, keep fighting, keep taking steps forward, and
leave this world a little bit better than you found it.
We'll see you guys next Tuesday.